So folks, I know you're tired of hearing about them, but let's go with the ongoing lesson of the damned hummingbirds, because there's a lot to learn here. This is not a silly video. I actually think there's a very big lesson here. So about a year or so ago on this channel, those of you who actually follow this closely, I shared a video about a bullying hummingbird. The species is called Rufous hummingbirds. And this particular Rufous hummingbird species, they bully other hummingbirds away from food sources like a feeder with the hummingbird nectar. And this Rufous hummingbird's deeply territorial. If another hummingbird comes even close, it attacks, and the other less angry birds, I guess, go away. They can't tolerate the attacks. They leave. Now, last year I was bummed out. I moved a few feeders around on the deck and it worked itself out. I was proud of myself and my hummingbirds kept on coming and there were lots of them and everyone was happy. And I just assumed that I was oh so clever and I guess the Rufous bullies just moved on somewhere else and I felt like I had outsmarted them. Folks, that was hubris on my part. Anytime you're dealing with a bully, you're dealing with a narcissist. And if there is a narcissistic hummingbird, it's these Rufous hummingbirds. Because this year was different, well, the Rufous birds did not go away. They showed up again. And I learned something about myself this year. And I learned why it is so hard to cut narcissistic people, or birds, out of our life. And I know some of you are thinking, okay, Dr. Ramani's losing it, but no, I'm not. I'm getting to a point. So for a month or so, I looked out my window and I saw that my feeders weren't being visited the way they have in the past, in the summer. Usually in the summer, the feeders are swarmed. I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of birds to keep refilling them through the day. And then I paid more attention. And I'm like, why aren't these feeders emptying out? And I saw the narcissistic bully bird sitting on top, scaring them all off. And sadly, I could still hear the others chirping, but they couldn't get to the feeders. I washed the feeders, I filled the feeders, and each night I had found that the feeders were basically not touched. To give you that metric, I'd usually fill these feeders 2 to 3 times per day, then rinse them at night, not even close. I tried everything. I moved the feeders. I only filled the feeders by half. I hid the feeders, but there were only so many places I could put the damn feeders without losing track of them. Nothing worked. The bully hummingbirds kept kicking all the other birds away. And I was throwing away gallons and gallons of this food that I had boiled and made for them because after a day in the sun, I was just throwing it out because it wasn't being touched. Then I just had to stop. I kept one feeder out there out of desperation, I guess, maybe that tiny little forever enabling trauma bonded piece of me. And then for a while I rinsed it out every few days, but it still wasn't being fed from because when I go to change it, even though it's hidden and I thought it was far away from the bully hummingbirds, it's still mostly full. But this whole process really became an eye-opener to me about enabling. Because at the end of the day, what happened was the bullies, the so-called narcissistic hummingbirds, ruined it for everyone. I knocked myself out to make it work. I tried every possible workarounds, but the bully birds didn't go. Sadly, finally, I recognized that the only way to even have a slight fighting chance of ever bringing those nice hummingbirds back was to pull all the feeders up, which means no feeders for anyone. Listen, I felt guilty, but the hummingbirds were fine before I got here, and the hummingbirds will be fine long after I'm gone. But they gave me such joy to watch them, and it gives them a little sustenance, and it's really hot where I live. So I am sure now they have to work harder to get nourishment, which really breaks my heart, and I was actually really sad for a few days. I am an agreeable, perhaps a little too empathic for my own good person, but I said I had to say F it. I'm a busy person and I'm not wasting time and money putting out feeders to cater to 3 birds. So everyone lost out because of the behavior of those 3 birds. So yes, I have a long-term hope that the bully hummingbirds at some point will quit and leave because there's no more food for them and I can restart, but that's not going to be for a while. But the eye-opener is that at some point, when do all of these complex workarounds we do for bullies or narcissists, we're fully catering to the narcissistic people. And in so doing, putting out feeders for just 3 birds, nobody else benefits. Me putting out the feeders was only benefiting the bully birds. The other birds couldn't get to it. And even though my hope was that the less aggressive birds might end up getting a sip or 2 of the nectar, it wasn't helping the vast majority of them. And so I had to go to an extreme solution and pull the plug on it for everyone, which again broke my heart because now no one's getting any food. I had strong feelings, I still do, or I obviously wouldn't be making this video. I felt guilty, obviously, like I said, about the less aggressive birds, though I think all hummingbirds are kind of not nice, but I still felt guilty about all the birds who now have nothing. But I even kind of felt guilty about the awful bullying rufous birds, who I guess I view as too stupid to recognize what they just did to themselves. And that was a wake-up call on how I still to this day sometimes get temporarily pulled into narcissistic backflows. But it was the only way to make this work out. I had to cut off everyone, but it was hard. I'm actually sad. I had hoped it could work out. But I am not sure that narcissistic people are any more well put together than those rufous hummingbirds. But at least I can make evolutionary sense out of the bird's behavior. Ultimately, when we are in any kind of narcissistic system, birds or men or people, we do keep telling ourselves, okay, I will cater to the narcissist, I'll make sure they're happy, and then I can make the whole system run better, and then I can take care of everyone, but it's never going to run well. Most people's needs will not get met. The bullies will take all of our effort. At best, other people will get crumbs or drops that they have to fight for or risk themselves for. Enablers do this all the time. They think that they can keep it under control by staying in denial if they just give the narcissistic person what they want. But sadly, it doesn't work that way. No matter how much you cater to the narcissistic people, to the bullies, people will continue to suffer. The hard part of the cutting off, as it were, is first, we feel negative emotions. Most pointedly, we feel guilt and even shame and sadness, as well as some anxiety, as though we have somehow failed. Now, the other hummingbirds don't have language, obviously. They can't tell me that they're mad or sad or let down by me, but people can tell us that. And when you do this, and you cut out or cut off the narcissist, which may mean cutting off everyone, you are going to get that pushback that you let everyone down. When in fact, all along, it was the narcissistic person whose behavior ultimately led to someone having to make the decision to cutting off and cutting away from the system. It's easier to blame the healthy person that leaves than the cause of the problem. Who knows what's going to happen? I've pulled up all the feeders, and I'm hoping that in about a month, the rufous ones will have moved on and find other hummingbird feeders to harass, and then I'm going to try again. Because sometimes when we are lucky, the narcissistic people do move on and stop tormenting the system, especially when there's no more supply or resources coming their way. But in other systems, they don't go away, and then someone else starts doing the equivalent of giving them supply or hummingbird nectar, and the group or the family exists forever, with their needs being secondary to the narcissistic person's, and they learn to subsist on crumbs. It wasn't easy for me to come to the decision to pull all the feeders. I would even lie awake at night wondering, what should I do? And it really gave me pause on how long it can take any of us to do the same in families, friend groups, workplaces. So many of us are caught in a lifelong dance of thinking there is a point where it will be enough for the narcissist. And that once they have enough, they will finally give others a turn. But that's the thing with narcissism. It's never enough for them. Whether I had one feeder out or 50 of them out, those rufous hummingbirds would have bullied every other bird away. For a narcissistic person, it's all about power and dominance, and so it's never enough. So I'll keep you posted. Let's see what pulling all the supply, in this case the nectar, does. Like I said, you'll be the first to know. But it made clear to me how enabling is almost reflexive. Not always because we believe the narcissist will change, but rather because we worry about and still want to care for others who are caught in the system. I know hummingbirds can't really be narcissistic, but the territoriality, the aggression, it all feels familiar. Stay tuned. In a couple of months, I'll let you know what happens. Thanks again.